Today, I want to talk about taking uncomfortable action. And I know people are always saying, your best results are on the outside of your comfort zone, but I don't think we really think about what it means to lean into uncomfortable action and what it can do for the results that we create. And so I want to take a moment and just talk about what that means for me. One of the things I was thinking about, I took a couple of flights in the last month that were super early. One, I had to get up at 3 a.m. Actually, both of them, I had to get up at 3 a.m. in the morning in order to catch a 5 a.m. flight. They were both flights that I chose. It wasn't something I absolutely had to do because there was no other options, but because I wanted what was on the other side of that, which was one, to be able to spend time. I wanted to be able to spend some time in Atlanta for a full day. So in order for me to be able to do that, I had to get up at 5 a.m. The other one was just to make sure that I got into my destination the day before the actual event started so that I would have some time. That was really, really important to me. So it required that I do something that I don't normally do. So my preference is to take an afternoon flight. I will stay an extra day in a hotel just to be able to take an afternoon flight out the next day. So I do this consistently all the time, but there have been some times where I've had to do something outside of my norm. And yeah, I was a little tired and probably a little exhausted, but it was only for a short period of time. And here's what that taught me. It taught me this, or it made me think about this. I had to get up at 3 a.m. to prepare for the journey ahead to get the result that I wanted on the other side. And it taught me this. There will always be seasons where in order for you to arrive at your destination, you will have to do things outside of your norm that are uncomfortable but necessary. They're literally necessary and required for you to be able to create that result. And so many people want to build businesses, $1 million businesses, have a 6-figure month, but they're unwilling to do these things that are slightly uncomfortable for them. And I'm not talking about grinding out, waking up early in the morning all the time. I've built a multi-million-dollar business. I start work at 10 a.m. every day. So I'm not one of those people who are going to tell you have to get up at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. in the morning to get your day started because the early bird gets the worm. But I want you to tap into those moments where you felt uncomfortable. Sometimes this might be just going live. You don't really like live streaming. You don't really like a certain way of doing things, but it's necessary for you to get the results that you want on the other side. And the question is, are you willing? Are you willing to have momentary discomfort for the results that you desire to create? The biggest action that is going to lead to your breakthrough and your next level most often is going to be the one you feel most uncomfortable taking. A lot in the last few episodes, I've been talking about that 6-figure investment I made. I actually made it twice. I renewed in that program for a second year, but I remember it being uncomfortable for me, right? There was a little bit of fear and apprehension behind it, but what drew me was, one, having the conversation with the person who would eventually become my mentor, from saying yes to that investment, and him saying, well, even if you didn't make any money until October, you would still be okay. And then the inside of me, I was like hell, I'm going to say that I'm not making any money until October. I know that I can create revenue, and I know my desire is to create more than this revenue. And so that alone, because I understand how this terror barrier and fear works, that there's always going to be something or a barrier that comes up that makes you feel like I should be afraid to do this. And most people will take that as a sign of saying, oh, I should not do this, right? Well, if we remember that everything you want is on the other side of your comfort zone, if we take that to heart, right? And understand that the action that's going to scare me the most is the one that holds the key to my breakthrough, what will happen is, what most people do is oftentimes they think that fear means it's not the right thing. But the fear is mostly your brain doing what it's supposed to do. It's doing its job, which is trying to keep you safe. We don't know about this thing. We've never done this before. So let's stay safe with what we know. But what we know is what we've got. And as Albert Einstein said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and again, and expecting a different result. So if we always pay attention to the logic of our brain and the fear that pops up, we're never going to get to the next level. This is why the majority of business owners never cross 7 figures, because they only do what they're comfortable doing. Here's why. Because every next level is going to tell you, danger, danger. It's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to say, you're making a mistake. Don't go that way. 6% of businesses that are ever created ever cross $1 million. Even fewer of those are women. I think it's 2% for women. Only half of the businesses ever created ever make more than 6 figures in a year. And this phenomenon that I'm talking about right now, it's the reason why. It's so crazy because it's the way that we're wired as humans. And so if we just let this programming, this wiring run the show, we will keep repeating the same patterns again and again, thus getting the same results. I often will have people come to me and they've been stuck at $200,000, $500,000, $700,000 for 2, 3, or 4 years because this internal mechanism won't allow them to do or take the big, bold, scary actions that are required for them to pop the lid off that thing and get to that $1 million mark and beyond, right? So the thing that happens in your brain is like you're making a mistake. You're going to fail. That feeling's like, well, what if I do this? What if it doesn't work out? You're not good enough to play at that level. What if people don't like you? And all that BS, all those BS stories start to come up. And if you listen to that, you will never give yourself permission to go to that next level. Because if you're waiting on your current programming to be the permission slip for what's next, it's never gonna happen. What you do in that moment is you're giving your current circumstances power to determine what you can do next, what you can afford to invest in, what your next level will be. But if, let's play a game here, if you decide to take back that power, if you decide that you will not be stopped and that you will not allow fear to stop you and you start playing the courage game, this is why I do courage experiences. So if you're new to me, you may not have heard this story, but when I started CrossFit, it'll be 13 years in April. When I started CrossFitting 13 years ago, one of the things that started me CrossFitting, or one of the things that I realized, is that I was afraid to do it, and that thing was kicking my butt. But I started to find this through line of continuing to go back to CrossFit, even though it scared the heck out of me, and finding this grit and tenacity when I was in every CrossFit workout was the same thing that I needed to overcome the fear of the things that were stopping me in my business. And so what I started to do at that point is I started to write down all the things that I had not done because of fear, and I started knocking them out one by one. My first one, I don't know why I chose this first. I think because it was a thing that I had in my mind that I always wanted to do, and I would be like, oh, I'll get to it at this time. I'll get to it at this time. And it was skydiving. Skydiving changed the game for me. It's a thing that I've done that I remember, if I can do that, I can do anything. And so I do these courage experiences every year. This year I did whitewater rafting, or this past year I did whitewater rafting in the Colombian rainforest. And you're like, well, that's not scary. Like, it was scary for me for 2 reasons. One, I grew up in the era of Pablo Escobar. So it was scary just to be in Colombia because I still had that in my cellular memory, the fear of what that looked like on the news all the time. And then the second thing was because I can't swim. So being in whitewater rafting and not being able to swim was terrifying for me, but I needed to overcome it. So I write down these courage experiences and then I knock them out one by one, because what happens is I build cellular memory of moving through fear. So the next time it's time to ask for more money when I'm negotiating a contract, or to speak on a larger stage than I've ever spoke on before, right? Or to go for a goal, like being on the Inc. 5000 list that I'm not sure if I'm going to measure up. All of those things, my soul remembers what to do, right? So being able to move through fear, the fear of taking those bold actions, is one of the biggest gifts that you can give yourself. Because if you only move when your brain says it's safe to do so, or your programming says it's safe to do so, you're only going to continue to create what you've already created. What you want to begin to do is follow that fear, right? Practice moving through that fear. Practice moving through it in small things first. Like, you don't have to go jump out of a plane, but if you find yourself thinking about something that you're scared to do, you know, maybe it's, again, going live for the first time. A lot of people are so afraid of public speaking, right? What's that thing that has been scaring you, but you know you want to do it? Go do that. Go practice doing it on things outside of your business. Doesn't even have to be something you do inside of your business. Doesn't have to do with making money. What it has to do is practicing, because the fear that you feel when you're on a roller coaster at the height, getting ready to go down, or jumping out of the plane for the first time, it originates in the same place of the body as the same fear that you have, or the fear that you have when you're, again, negotiating the biggest contract you have or speaking on the biggest stage you've ever spoken on. So if you practice navigating fear in other situations, it's easier to move through it. And from this space, new possibilities are birthed, new visions are birthed, new ideas come to life. This is when you truly begin to lead yourself, and everything is possible. You give yourself permission to go big or go home, to raise your fees, to hire that mentor, to get the support of the team that you want to have. I remember being afraid to hire team members because I had had a business once before and I'd lost everything. And there were people who were depending on me for a paycheck that I could no longer pay. And I never wanted to feel that feeling again. So there was always this fear that if I'm responsible for someone else's livelihood, there could always be this possibility that they one day wouldn't have a job if I failed, if I was not able to create income. And so for a long time, I was strapped to my business, doing everything myself until I got the courage to hire someone. And we've grown our team ever since then. And I'm able to run my business without me being tied to it. Here's why this is important. Making these big, bold moves and moving through fear is important. Because what you're going to be doing is giving yourself the permission to go bigger, to move through the uncertainty, to move through the doubt, and practicing it again and again. The permission that you've been waiting on somebody to say, it's time. It's time for you to speak on bigger stages. It's time for you to charge $50,000 for your services now. Glenda the Good Witch is not coming down to do that. You are the permission slip that you've been waiting for. And the only thing holding that permission slip hostage is fear. And this is the secret to your next level. This is the secret to raising your game. This is the secret to playing a bigger game. Not being stopped by your circumstances, not being stopped by other people, and not being stopped by your own thoughts and fears. Here's what I'm inviting you to do today. Give yourself permission. Give yourself permission to raise your game, to play bigger. Until next time. Thank you so much for watching my show, my channel. Here's what I want you to do. If you really love what you've been listening to, I want you to subscribe to my channel and leave me a comment. No, really, leave a comment, like right now. I'm not gonna stop talking until